Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 130 of the longest tenured Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast in the world. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and before we begin, please let me remind you to like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't already, subscribe to DNVR Sports YouTube channel and DNVR Nuggets podcast channel. The audio version of the show is perfect for your commute or to make your office/home office time more bearable. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/MiroslavCUK, just like my Seco tier supporters, Peter Plummer and Daniel Lynch. By the way, we have the new Patreon since last week, and I would love to welcome him into the family. I just don't want to. It is Tyler Barr. Tyler Barr, welcome to the family. Let's now run quickly through the couple of games we've had since the last show, and both of those games were against the Blazers. So, Blazers game, first blood. I don't have a lot of notes on this game. The Nuggets scored 146 points with only 8 3-pointers made. Joker scored 40 points in less than 31 minutes, and Jamal, Gordon, and DJ played well. But this was Calvin's boys' game. I've critiqued Calvin go young or bust approach a lot this season, and it still might bite them in the behind at the end. But on that night, Christian made every shot and layup he attempted, and he attempted a lot. Strawther was efficient. Zeke played well both next to Nikola and DJ, but in both cases as a 4 on the court. And J-Pick was just amazing, both scoring and setting the plate. Mike skipped this game, but the youngsters stepped up and delivered the season's highest scoring game. Blazers game, first blood, part 2. MPJ, Gordon, Russ, and Peyton all missed this game, so 4 out of 7 boot starters were in street clothes. If I told you the Nuggets got only 3 points off the bench versus a division rival that was missing 5 of their rotation guys, that would have sounded like a horrible loss early in the season. Luckily, the Nuggets starters scored 129 points, so it was enough against the lousy Blazers for their 8th straight win. Joker had 7 assists in the first 7.5 minutes of the game, most of them for Jamal, who was extremely shot-ready, just like what I want from him. In the end, Nikola barely recorded 3 more assists because this was a very strange game. Jamal was so hot that he the team ended with only 26 assists, with a lot of possessions that were looking like they were from the 90s, or I don't know, OKC Thunder of today. This might sound like a complaint, but I really enjoyed Jamal's 55 pace. The only part I didn't love was the bunch of missed field goals from him in the fourth when he was hunting his new career high. Luckily, the Blazers were good enough to take advantage of a bad offensive process in the last period. My last note was about Dario Saric, who got the chance to play at the 4 for the first time this season, next to both Nikola and DeAndre, but he didn't get a second stint. He was like +8 in his minutes, though. I don't expect many more chances for him after the All-Star break. All right, that's enough of an intro for today. It's the All-Star weekend, folks. That means I needed an All-Star lineup of guests for the show. Unfortunately, such guests are on their deserved mini vacations, so here are Nick and Jeremy. Welcome to the show, guys.
What's up?
That was a terrible intro.
I'm kidding. Like, it is well documented that the two over you were my podcasting heroes when Hector was a pup. How are we feeling today, guys?
I've never even met you before, and I come onto your show out of kindness, and you just lay into us before we're even on screen.
I'm wondering, is Serbia so in need of heroes that you have to find 2 midwit podcasters to be inspired by?
Holding out for a hero, yeah. That is true. I have one serious question for you, Jeremy. Though the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Not that I care, but you live, and we've learned that in the last show, in the elite part of Philadelphia. Like, Philadelphia, everybody wants to live in. So I'm guessing you weren't part of like street riots and stuff like that after the championship. But can you share more details with us?
Yeah, fortunately, all the really hard party goers can't afford to even Uber up to the elite place where I live in. Actually, for Denver, I think it's a good comparison. We're like in the I guess Rhino area, so there's a whole lot of like partying that goes on right outside my window. But if you're celebrating the Nuggets parade like you did 2 years ago, you were downtown. You were like closer to the center of the city. So that's what happened here. They started at the Rocky statue, or wait, they ended at the Rocky statue, and just marched through downtown. So there were like a bunch of police on our corner, like just in case something happened, which is pretty good for Philadelphia. I really wish those police would just stay there all the time. But yeah, no, they decided to burn down a different part of the city, which I feel grateful for.
Was it a part that needed to be burned down anyway?
Nick,
Oh, wow.
kind of a question's that. It all needs to burn, baby. It all needs to burn.
Okay, let's switch from the very dark subject you just mentioned to something that's actually happening right now to a Nuggets player, Julian Strawther. I think he played last night. I hope he played last night because his team did not qualify for the big game. His team did not win two games or 2 short stints, whatever that was. I have no idea. I haven't watched it, but he will not be a part of the big game or big. I don't know how to call it, even like a tournament or whatever is going to happen on Sunday. But one thing I didn't notice is that Team LeBron or Team American Idol, American Heroes, I don't know how to call it, the old dogs, will conveniently play against those scrappy Dalton Connect, Trace, whatever guys are on their team. I don't even know who the guys are. Is this a coincidence that LeBron and Steph and Durant are getting a bye in the semifinal on Sunday?
Nick,
I don't know. I mean, apparently nothing is a coincidence these days. Is what I'm understanding. Apparently everything is a conspiracy, which is hard to argue against when Luka gets traded to the Lakers for an old superstar. So yeah, I'll go with conspiracy. It's absolutely a conspiracy.
I have to say though, so it's either a conspiracy that Luka was traded, since this is what you're really trying to get into, Miroslav. When you asked a question about the All-Star game, back to Luka. Either it's a conspiracy or the level of stupidity is so insanely high, which is why it's clearly a conspiracy, right? Because I actually really enjoy the stupid storyline more, because that really is like the stupidest thing anybody has ever done in sports. And I like believing in that version of the universe because it's a lot more fun. I don't know if you're with me on that one.
Oh, yeah. It's so like Ozark. I don't know if you watched that show. Like everything that happened around that trade. Just
I live that show every time I walk out my front door. I live in Philadelphia. There's money laundering going on between. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay,
you never know who might be watching this, Jeremy.
We will circle. We will circle back.
Jeremiah Poley.
We will circle back to the All-Star game because that's what we were talking about.
Oh, right, the All-Star game,
now, right? But before that, let's just chat a bit about our beloved Denver Nuggets. Like, it was, I was very hard on Calvin Booth throughout this season for giving Nikola Jokić a team that is too young, around the 5 veterans, and one of those veterans is the 49-year-old DeAndre Jordan. But what if, and hear me out, we get a lot of Jamal Murray who is ready to shoot every wide open 3-pointer and also able to turn the corner on every defender like he did on Wednesday night. I do realize he wasn't crossing over Anthony Edwards or Jaylen Brown, but that was nevertheless a very impressive game from Mal. Is that kind of Jamal enough to push the Nuggets back into the main contender tier in the NBA?
Yeah. So are you asking, is a 55-point Jamal Murray enough to? Yeah. I mean, yeah. If they get that Murray, they're gonna win 3 in a row. Are we seeing a flash in the pan, I guess, is now the question, because he's been looking great. And I think I picked this up on Twitter, so I didn't fact check this, so it's probably wrong, but I think that Portland was playing like the best defense in the league coming into this for like a month or something. So this wasn't, Portland's record's not great, but Portland was playing well coming into these games, and Murray sliced and diced them in both games. So, and then especially in that second game, which we all knew he was going to have a big game after getting tossed the game before, but I don't think anybody had what it ended up being 55. So yeah, I mean, I think he definitely looks better. Just the eye test, I think he looks quicker. He looks more locked in. He looks like he's overcome. If he was having some kind of confidence issue with his shot or something, I don't know. It seems like maybe it really just was physical. That he's in better shape. Maybe he was having some ailing leg stuff that's maybe not hampering him as much. And it's been nice. I mean, I just feel like it's been a while since we've seen this version of Murray, what we've seen the last, I would say going on about a month now. I think he's looked better, but it seems like he's really turned a corner.
I would put a little asterisk on that. While I agree largely with what you said, I don't know if I saw that much improved play at the rim from him, as far as driving there and being able to have the speed or agility to make a cut that gives him more of a hold to the hoop. What I saw was a better job kind of carving people up in that like mid-range 10-foot area and being able to find his mid-range shot, which really actually is kind of what he did so well for us in the championship run. I would like to see, I think, a little bit better at the rim. That's where he's been so horrific this year, is when he does the stupid stuff where he goes in over his head, and before he knows it, he's at the rim without any sort of good shot, without any sort of good pass, and turns the ball over, makes a bad shot. And now we have 4v5 going back the other way. So it seemed like it wasn't just necessarily maybe improved physical play, but also maybe some better decision-making as far as not getting himself into that pickle. But again, if we're trying to map out the extent to which Jamal Murray can guide us to a championship by one game, even if it's against a team that had a good profile for defense, you know, it's going to be such a different map that he has to guide himself through when we're talking about the different ways he has to navigate defenders round after round after round.
A dynamic that I'm interested in seeing how it develops moving forward is Westbrook as the kind of slasher finisher at the rim, guy who's putting pressure on collapsing the defense, and Murray as the kind of crafty, like almost like a Chris Paul type or like a Chauncey Billups type player, maybe like a guy who just is good at like getting his own little mid-range shot, like kind of like creating, you know, he's a guy who can like post up and get his own shot. That way he doesn't necessarily need to be always beating his guy off the dribble. He can get separation and space for his shot in other ways. And I think there could be interesting that Jokić, it basically gives Jokić all these different like tools now he can work with that I think could be really, really devastating on offense. And we're already seeing that, like what their offense is doing right now is like almost historic. And that's been with injuries and people in and out of the lineup and kind of mixed up starting rotations and stuff. So yeah, really the only question for me at this point is can they pull their defense enough or tighten their defense up enough to be competitive in like a tight playoff series. But
which Murray, just real quick on that note, he's already made more steals 46 games into the season than he has in any season total of his entire career, except for the second season where he played 81 of 82 games, and he's only 9 steals off of that. So, this is not what you rank a player defensively by, but it's certainly a defensive stat that's helpful. That's good to see.
Yeah, the defense is the big question with Jamal for sure. We should be happy about his good steals numbers, but we know Joker has amazing steals numbers, and he is still not the elite defensive center. He just has amazing hands, and he plays the passing angles amazingly, and this is why he is so good in some parts of defense. But and it's just something that we'll need to see in the playoffs, how Jamal will fare on the defensive side. Will he be a target like he was last year? But on the offensive side, I mentioned two things that were really amazing in that last game against Portland. One is his shot readiness. And I put a tweet a couple of weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago. I took a sample of last 5 Nuggets games at that point, and Jamal was the 5th guy on the Nuggets roster in terms of made threes. All of the Jokić and Christian Brown and Julian Strawther and Michael Porter, all of them made more threes than our best shooter, Jamal Murray, because he wasn't shot ready, and he was also missing a lot of shots, to be honest. What happened there? How can things turn so quickly, and you have a guy who looks disinterested or doesn't have a lot of confidence in his shot, and all of a sudden he just explodes and put a 55 burger on a team who is a rival from the division.
I mean, Murray's kind of always been like this a little bit, right? He's never been the most consistent player, and I'm just glad to see that he still has this in him. I mean, he had a 40-pointer, I think, a few weeks ago too. And I remember I think the last time I was on your pod, or maybe it was 2 times ago, I was talking about where's that Murray? Where's the Murray that can just go off for 50? Have we lost that guy? Is he just a kind of 18 to 22 points a game player? But he's clearly still there. I mean, it's something in his constitution. I think he's the type of guy that when he runs hot, he runs really hot, and he feeds on it. And what you hope is that we can time this up so he's feeling it in a playoff run.
Yeah, I think it's hard. We don't have any sort of inside information, coaching or whatever. That usually boils down to focus, like you said, confidence or overthinking it. Especially players like Murray, where they've put the work in to just year after year after year of training that shot. It turns into an unconscious or subconscious kind of emotion. You hear that all the time about players having too much time. The shot was too open. So they wind up thinking about it as opposed to just getting the ball and putting their body into emotion without thinking twice about it. Certainly, anytime we've seen Jamal go off, you see that just the tenacity that he comes with it's almost like he's not even thinking. I wish I had a better answer for you, something worthwhile. It just seemed like maybe he's got leg strength back. Maybe he's got some endurance back. That was things that looked like it was questionable, because that affects everything. He's also at 94% free throws for the past 15 games or something like that, which is good to see. When he was a rookie, he was an elite free throw shooter, and the past couple of seasons feels like he's just gotten to a good, high quality free throw shooter. That involves
that could also be an indication of him.
What's that?
Getting out of his. That could also be an indication of him getting out of his head.
Yeah, exactly.
He signed that huge contract, in the offseason extension, and that combined with getting off to a slow start, and if he was also in his typical kind of coming into the season not fully in shape, and then if he was having some
trade him to the Mavs.
Yeah, exactly. He's the wrong archetype for our team. If he was also having some lower leg shin splint issues or something. You could just see those pieces kind of like compounding on even a really great player like Murray, where you're just in your head too much. Just and then as that kind of builds on you and you're more in your head, then you play worse and then it gets worse. Right? There's this kind of snowball effect, and so maybe we're just seeing the unwind of that.
Yeah, you throw in a Russ who's on fire. You throw in a Christian Brown who's on fire.
Yeah, and maybe just good old fashioned like even like in team competition, with Russ, or just like seeing how Russ was able to kind of relieve some of the pressure from him there. But then kind of, I mean, there was even, people were talking about, should we be starting Russ over Murray? And so, I mean, that was never going to happen, but like, I'm sure, Murray understood what was going on, and that may have just even lit something in him. I don't know. It's hard to say. We're kind of armchair psychologizing, but
yeah, let's take a short break now. And after that, we are going to talk a bit about the team at large. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. So, guys, what grade would you give to the Nuggets as a whole after the first 55 games, which they finished with a 36-19 record, which is identical to the last season? We've seen so many different iterations of this team already, with the starting night, starting five. Then Jamal goes out. Then we have other guys stepping in. We have Russell Westbrook stepping in and playing amazingly next to Jokić after, I think he only needed 2 or 3 weeks of accommodation, and then he just figured out, let's just feed the beast, and we're going to be so good. But then Russ comes out, and now Christian is back in the lineup, and he's playing his best basketball so far, even though he's been really good overall this season. So if you would try to parse everything in, what kind of grade would you give to the Nuggets for this season so far?
I'm thinking probably something like a B-. I don't think it's been average. I think it could be better. I have a hard time going into the A category because, I mean, all we've done is complain all year about up until the last couple of weeks. It's been kind of like the I don't know, online. It's been the TL's been pretty down. It seems like it's been mostly a lot of frustration about the lack of trades or and I mean, people were thrown out. Honestly, how many conversations have we had about trading Michael Porter Jr. and so I mean, we were literally talking about breaking up the core of the team. So I think it's hard to say they're in an A category. So I think we're probably somewhere in the B range. Because I think it's hard to go much lower than that, because what are they, 1 game out of second place now in the West? And it's been a really competitive West. I think they're probably going to finish in that 2 or 3 seed area. And so if OKC is the elite in the West, and they're their Nuggets aren't going to catch them, pending an SGA broken leg or something. So yeah, I think they've worked through some issues. They're starting to build some momentum, and I'm excited now about the second half. I think they're going to play really well going into the playoffs, and I think they're going to make another run at it.
Wow, you already mentioned parts of Philadelphia being burned deservedly, and now you mentioned SGA's leg getting broken. Can you top that, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Maybe with some truth. I think any letter grade less than an A- is just completely insane at this point. And I think that I also agree with Nick talking about how much we've criticized them at different points this season. You're right about everything that you said there, but that falls on to us for being too short term.
Our lack of faith.
Things.
Yeah.
So I mean, we pretty much, you just said we have the same record as last season. We're playing similar ball to what we did when we were a championship team. And when we won it all, were we an A+ version of the team? I'm not even sure if we were an A+. I think I'd put us right at an A in the way things go with matchups and whatever, we wound up coming away with it. Whereas last year, were we a C, or were we going to B, or were we an A-? And things just didn't fall our way in the matchups. And so I think that's where I see it now. Is I see us as an A- right now, and I'd love to see us get to an A. I wonder if there wasn't some sort of roster move that could have been made to help the bench, where maybe that could have gotten us from an A- to an A. Sure, but do we have a chance to win it all again? Absolutely. We can cut it up with any team in the NBA. I mean, the roster too. Going back to your last question of like, is this version of Murray good enough to make up for the rest of the team? Well, compares to our roster to when we were a championship team. So instead of Bruce Brown, we have Westbrook. Is that a downgrade? I think that's hard to call that a downgrade. Instead of Kenny, KCP, we have Christian Brown in his role. Like the way he's playing, it's really hard to call that a downgrade. At worst, it's a side grade. So now where are we starting to get into? We're starting to get into the bench, and where maybe like, okay, instead of Jeff Green, we have Peyton Watson. Instead of the Christian Brown on our bench, we have Strawther. I do think that is not a positive, but we're starting to really get into the nitty gritty if we're talking about being a C team or a B team or a team that has no chance of making the championship. So I have to put the onus on myself from the last time I was on your show, calling all the Nuggets players out, and just say it's good to see them return back to form, and that I didn't fire any of them and was not in the position to.
So when this season started, I was disappointed by the lack of veteran depth on the team. But I said to myself, listen, man, like, just give it a couple of months. This is probably not the final version of the team. Wait for the trade deadline. Something's going to change. Somebody's going to come into this roster and it will make a completely different story. It didn't happen. It's the same roster. It's just that Michael Malone is having an epiphany right now that he can actually play more than like 7 or 8 guys. What he did, like in that Chicago game they lost. They played with only 8 guys and they still lost the game. Now, I don't know what happened between that date and this past 8-game win streak. But, guys like Zeke Naji all of a sudden can play some real NBA minutes at the 4, which is something a lot of, let's say, fans were calling for. I wouldn't say a lot of analysts seriously predicted that Zeke is going to be amazing at the 4 while being completely useless at the 5. And I will tell you one thing I was thinking about a couple of days ago. I think Michael Malone has a problem with playing a center who is not a legit 7-footer. There's a reason why DJ works so well with the bench and nobody else does. Like, he is a legit rebound first guy who can contest shots at the rim, not maybe at the highest possible level, but still, he is a vertical guy. He can catch lobs in bunches.
Do you think that's because of how Malone schemes defense? Like, because he comes from like an old school kind of like.
I just think Michael Malone is super traditional in this way. He just doesn't play with small lineups well at all, or doesn't coach small lineups at all. Do you think there's something there, or am I just tripping?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a Malone thing. History would have me say it's got to be a Malone thing, because you look at all of our centers who go on to play well on other teams. But I also get, like, I can visualize everything that you were just saying, and I'm not sure how much that has to do with Malone. I see flashbacks to people being able to play Najee inside, even off ball. They can just gain the ground that they need to in there and get the incoming pass and make a play on them. As opposed to DJ being out there, it's just this gigantic tree that is scary to try and throw a pass in there to somebody. It's scary to try and think that you can go in there and gain some ground on him. He's just a force. He's an absolute physical force in there. And he might not be the most talented guy at this point, but when you've got a force there and then you've got some scrappy guys that can take any sort of loose ball or any sort of fast transition and turn it into something, you've got something. Whereas if you're this weaker, smaller force in the middle, then you can really start to tear them down. You can get that ball closer to the rim. You can make things happen. And I mean, hey, we even see that. We see that happen against Jokić. It happens. But just physically having DJ there, I see where it works, and I think why it works. And I'm not even sure that's Malone per se. Like, Aaron Gordon small ball 2 years ago, that was pretty viable. It depended on the matchup, but that was viable.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's matchup dependent, and they have some flexibility now. I think Pickett has been really interesting too lately. I like his game. I don't know if he's going to be ready for like a playoff run, but I think that gives them another kind of interesting option, because I mean, if you think about like you've got DJ. If we have Najee actually be playable here as a kind of athletic 4, and you have like MPJ out there, that is like a monstrous bench unit that's gonna gobble up rebounds on just about anybody, I would think, and that then allows for like Strawther and Pickett to be chucking threes or slashing or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think the bench is rounding into shape, and I think I think Booth, we'll see. I mean, his success, his tenure is going to be judged on these young guys. If they pan out, then he'll look like a genius. I mean, he'll have built a long-term successful sort of dynasty with late first, second round draft picks, instead of going the traditional route of trying to stack a bunch of cheap vets around as you go. But we've seen what that's done to other teams. I mean, the Bucks are in bad shape now because they just kept trying to like fill holes with more expensive like veterans and stuff. And so I think older guys, now they're just old. So I like, in theory, I like Booth's strategy and how it looks like it may play out. We just have to have the young guys like become viable, contributors in a Western Conference Finals. Like, do we have guys that can be the 7th or 8th guy in a series like that?
I do wonder, are we a Deron Holmes away from having a solid bench? Like, what would this season really have looked like if that guy would have been healthy and playing minutes?
Yeah. Play 6 young guys.
Big guys.
Is not enough. Okay, so here's the thing. During this, it was the case last season too, in a way, but this season in particular, I had a lot of roster envy around the league. Like, whoever we play, I pick like 3 or 4 guys I really like, and like these guys would work so well on the Nuggets, while we were seeing only like 8 or 9 man rotations there, with Hunter Tyson playing a lot of minutes when somebody was out, and Tyson wasn't really great throughout this season. He had some moments, I guess. But in this recent stretch, you had Julian Strawther playing really well in several games. Not in every game, but he really played well in several of them. You mentioned Jalen Pickett, who was really good as a table setter, and he works really well next to Jamal and next to Joker, which is really encouraging, because in case you have a break glass in case of emergency kind of situation, you might be able to plug him in for like 8 minutes in playoffs, just to while you're waiting for, I don't know, Russell Westbrook to come back or whoever is missing at that point. So I have to say, a lot of these guys, I think I would only exclude Hunter Tyson right now as a real NBA player, but everybody else looks pretty darn good. So yeah, I know Calvin Booth is an amazing scout, and he's probably right about most of the guys he drafted. It's just that I was never a fan of having so many young guys and relying on them for all of them or most of them to click at the right moment.
So it was definitely a big ballsy risk to take with a championship team.
Is Malone paying you? Is he PayPaling you to say this stuff?
I was on Malone's side throughout this season because I felt he got a lousy hand from Calvin Booth.
These are just dollars signs that you see going as you keep talking.
But there are some guys on the internet that think I want to fire Malone. like they look at some of my tweets and think that I'm against Malone. So yeah, I'm against the Nuggets stagnating. I just want them to improve from season to season, so they would be able to be in that top tier contention, because the other teams are getting better. Who would have thought that Cleveland would look so good this season?
Yeah.
They came out of nowhere, and now we need to find a way to handle them. I mean, let's hope we're going to need to handle them, because that will be all the way in the finals.
Yeah, and OKC is still sitting on like everybody's draft picks. So
It's true. This might be the best season to beat real OKC, because they might get so real next year.
That's scary to think about.
Yeah. Well, unless Nick's idea comes to fruition, and I'm not going to repeat.
It wasn't a prophecy. I don't have magic ability here. I promise. I don't think.
We'll see.
My witchcraft can just
We'll see.
Manifest things.
Okay, let's take one more short break, and after that, let's talk some fun stuff. All-Star Weekend, and we're going to try to improve it. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. So, I think it was 3 years ago, Voya and I did a show on improving the All-Star Weekend. We called it The Serbs Are Improving the All-Star Weekend. And it was a good show, and because Voya is a really smart guy. But now I have you guys here, and we're going to make a fun show out of it, right? So here's the
sub
thing.
PhD level show.
Like, I've called you to give me some good ideas to improve All-Star Weekend, and then we'll dive into some wild ideas as well, because
I got an idea, because I
Adam
can't
Silver
tell.
is pretty wild.
I can't tell if some of my ideas are good ideas or bad ideas. So what if we just throw out ideas and then we discuss whether it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Let's go in circle. Yeah. You want to start, Nick?
Okay. Hear me out. A player makes 2 in a row, and he's heating up. 3 in a row, he's on fire, and the net literally lights on fire.
Okay.
Oh, they can do that.
NBA Jam style. So we have and it just stays on fire until somebody else scores.
Can I add to that idea?
Mm-hmm.
Their shoes also go on fire.
Literally.
Do they have little smoke streams that come out like the Roadrunner or something when they're running?
There's a way to do it. This is just science.
That's interesting, Nick. So you want to add on the visuals of the game. It's not enough that nowadays the people that watch the games on League Pass can watch the teams being represented by Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny or whatever they can do nowadays. We need to add fire and flames.
Yeah, I mean, even the potential for someone to get seriously injured, from the flames. I think that now when you go up for a dunk, right, you got a flaming net up there. Are you gonna really want to go up for a dunk? Necessarily, I don't know. Maybe you're gonna take the pull up midi.
You're gonna be very focused and determined when you do it, at least.
Jeremy, you did an all-nighter with these ideas, so I would like to hear your first idea.
Yeah, you caught me at 4:15 a.m. where I woke up, couldn't get back to sleep, and then saw your message about all-star ideas. And unfortunately, I came up with one idea and just ran with it. And it's really good. It's not funny. It's really, really smart. Okay. Really good. So it's going to take forever to explain, of course. So I'll just start to explain it in chunks. And then
do you need to get a spreadsheet out? Do you have an Excel we can look at?
Yeah. It's a Google Doc. I'm not good with science. It's science. You just let somebody else do it. So I really like the idea. I don't want to give up on the game meaning something and being important. I like the idea of making it so legit and so important to these teams and these players that like they get anxiety going into it. And so I thought I kind of devised a way here where players are almost seen as like each player is like an emissary from their team to this big important competition, instead of like being these weird like, you know, almost like free agent fools where they're just like trying to raise the stock of their name, the value of their name, and like goof around. And so that's what I kind of like drilled into, like Hunger Games, like, you know, sending these people in from your team, and it's like a holy, sacred, important kind of a thing.
And the losing team gets killed.
That's
I like
where
it.
I'm going.
Yes,
it's
like
science.
it. Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to understand.
Yeah.
You took my idea. I'm all done.
Sorry. Sorry.
You wanted to take a lot of time to prepare us for that, and Nick just threw out your punch.
Got right to the point.
My bad.
Yeah, murder. That's my solution.
Sorry.
Murder.
Yeah.
So how many guys are getting murdered there? Like all but one, or
well, there's two ways of doing it. There's actually it's not murder. I just don't like. I know that there's a lot of ideas to go through here, and I only have one like of like 10 ideas mashed together, so I don't want to take it up for too long before moving on. But you could do it with like it is now. Where how many players is it?
24.
24, right. And every player gets roughly 20 minutes. I don't want to get too much in the weeds on how you make that happen, but roughly every player gets 20 minutes. And they get graded essentially by how well that they perform. And that reflects their team's score, you could say. And so every team is coming away from this of the 24 teams that had an all-star. Or if you do have multiple players from one team, you can average the score together of the players who competed. But that's one way of doing it. I think I prefer if you just leveled off at one, every team gets one. That almost makes it more of like a wholly important event. And so every player is motivated to do the best that they can, because they're going to come away from the game with 20 minutes played, with a grade that will carry results. I think we can push that off to let the ball go around until it comes back again. But yeah, so either that, or you could also up it to 30 stars, which is something that a lot of like, you hear a lot of NBA pundits talk about, is wanting to have more all-stars. It's always so hard to pick them. You could take it to 30, and then every team gets a player, and then everybody plays 16 minutes instead of 20. That starts to, I think, dilute it maybe a little too much. The difference between 16 and 20 like feels kind of real to me. So I do like keeping it at 20, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. That's
the Washington Wizards really deserve an all-star?
Well, it's only Jordan Poole now, because Kyle Kuzma, their other superstar, is now in Milwaukee. So
yeah,
right.
Are either of those guys an all-star?
Well, that's what they thought about Katniss Tulip, whatever her name was.
True. And she came out of nowhere to win.
Came out of nowhere and killed people.
Cold blood.
I can see this idea, and it's probably because you've been living in Philadelphia for so long. So I get there was like a process.
A jungle sort of mentality has developed.
Your idea.
It is.
Yeah, I like it. It won't fly, of course, because people want to see actual superstars of the game. And by the way, Domantas Sabonis is not an all-star, or is he? I don't think he is.
Is he not?
It's a really random note from me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Domantas Sabonis is like number 1 in rebounds per game.
Yeah.
And I get it. He's a big guy. But he's also like number 3 in triple-doubles and like number 3 in three-point shooting. So
and
he's
assists.
He's an all-star. Yeah.
No, okay.
No, I mean, he should be. I don't
care. But it's just triple-doubles and three-point percentage. He's ruining those two categories for everybody, because he's not a great player. Like I hate Domantas Sabonis. I want this to be on record. He is a diluted version of Nikola Jokić. He is not nearly as good as Nikola Jokić. He is trying to emulate his game. He's just ruined the two categories for everybody. I just needed to put.
Do you have like an
off my chest.
ancestral blood feud with the Sabonises?
I do. I actually do. Yeah, his father was crying after being beaten by Yugoslavia in '95. So yeah, he was literally crying after that game. Okay, let's get back to the All-Star game. I have an idea. So everybody is talking about the idea of USA versus the world in the All-Star game, and some analysts will tell you that they just don't care. The players don't care to compete in that kind of environment. And I think I know why is that. It's because the world is just too good right now.
Dominate, yeah.
And I don't think America would have a fair chance against the world. But let's add a couple of big territories to the U.S. so they can compete better. Like add U.S., Canada, and Greenland. What do you think about that?
And Mexico. Those are all going to be America soon anyway, apparently.
Yeah. No, yeah. This wasn't a real idea. I just wanted to make a joke there. And I hope it wasn't too rough on your ears. But here's the real idea. So for the Sunday night main event, so Adam Silver said we'll have 4 teams instead of 2 teams. And we'll see. It might be good. I don't want to say it's gonna be bad before I see it. Who knows? It's probably going to suck, but maybe not. But here's my idea. Instead of having 2 teams, or instead of having 4 teams, let's split the 24 All-Star players into 8 3-member teams. So no G Leaguers and other bullshit. It's just the 24 players split in 8 3-member teams, and they play a FIBA 3x3 3x3 single game elimination tournament. The teams are drafted in a snake draft fashion by the 8 owners of the teams with the biggest luxury tax bill, starting with everybody's favorite Matt Ishbia. He's gonna pay like $200 million of luxury tax for this team, guys. It's beautiful.
Gotta love it.
So what do you think about the 1-game elimination tournament between 8 3-member teams?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think it could be interesting. Half court.
Yeah, half court.
You probably can't do full court 3, because
half court.
Track
half
meet.
court.
Yeah, I mean, there is a 3-on-3 tournament now, right? Or did they get rid of that? Haven't they done that?
Like with celebrities and former players,
that's right.
something like that.
Yeah, are we thinking of that other league, like the 3-man league, maybe?
No, there was something on Saturdays, like some dumb.
Yeah, they've been doing something.
Yeah,
or maybe it's with young players or a mix
every
of
year,
but
because it just sucks differently every year.
Yeah, I clearly watch it with rapt attention. Also,
yeah, at the NBA, we care about traditions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it like I kind of liked the idea from a few years ago of the captains picking the teams, and then like Jokić gets picked last. That's kind of fun. Like, kind of creates some little, I don't know, like rivalries that might even persist into the season and the playoffs. Maybe I don't know how much the players actually care about stuff like that, but like it's a little bit of something that gives us something to talk about. But I do kind of like the idea of like a playground style thing where you've got 8 captains, the top maybe 8 vote getters or something like that. Like divvying up or picking their guys. And then you can kind of see, it might even tell you a little bit about how players think about each other and stuff a little bit. So yeah, I think that would be a ton of fun.
I mean, it would be as dumb as what we are going to see tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But novel dumb. I mean, at least we'd be seeing him play a different kind of basketball.
The reason I like FIBA 3x3 basketball is because it's extremely physical. Like, you almost need to murder a guy to get a foul called on you, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. And it's not like for the Devin Bookers of this world. Like you need some real dogs in that tournament to survive.
Well, I actually have a good follow-up to that one then.
Yeah, please.
Speaking of refs. So one of my ideas is to have NBA players who don't make the All-Star game ref the game.
Ooh.
And maybe we have extra. So I don't know, what is there normally, like 3 or 4 refs? Maybe there's like 6 or something because they're not used to doing it. They, and maybe they even rotate. Maybe you have 12. So we have like the ref team. One team does the first half, one does the second half or something. Now, the reason I think this is interesting is like, well, they could also be mic'd up or something, which would be kind of fun. Like they could be talking crap or whatever. I don't know. Probably, but just as like as an exercise, the reffing in these games is completely pointless anyways. They barely touch each other. They barely call anything typically. We've seen a couple that have gotten rough where they actually, these teams are like seem like they're competing, but for the most part, the refs are going to let stuff go anyway. So if you bring in some actual NBA players and just have them go through this experience, I think they could actually be like more fair refs. They might actually have find it kind of fun to just like actually like call LeBron for fouls and stuff like that. The other thing is that I think it might give them an interesting perspective on how hard it is to ref, and that might be something that after the All-Star game in the locker room, they're telling the guys about it and like, man, yeah, it's actually like really this is like actually really hard. Just might help to engender a little bit of empathy for the refs, and maybe not completely eliminate like all of the complaining and stuff, but just it might help to kind of bridge the gap between the two sides a little bit.
Okay, let's take one more last short break, and after that we'll do some quick hitters before we go. Don't go anywhere.
I've got a little bit more to my idea.
And we are back. So I will need to edit this Jeremy's super short rant. Don't worry, it's just for the audio version. Yeah, I'm gonna fix it. And we are back. So, Jeremy, do you have a follow-up or a new idea you want to work with?
I do. I don't know how you knew that, but I do. The second half of this whole idea is the incentive to actually play hard. So we described how it works, everybody going to the All-Star game, being a representative of their team. Well, what does it mean? And the two things that I found you could play with here that aren't something ridiculous like, some random rule that does kind of defeat the tradition of the game. The two things that leave the tradition intact are home team during the playoffs is one thing that you could add to incentivize it, and the ability to reseed throughout the playoffs. And so some of the things that I liked playing around with was you still need to make the season mean something. So I think first matchup is the traditional way. If you're first, you play against 8th, or whoever comes out of the 9-10, whatever. But after that, if the team with the higher ranked all-star gets to either be the home team or gets to reseed their team's matchup, there's a whole lot at stake at that point. And then there's a whole lot of incentive on that player to perform well and during the All-Star game. And then you throw in that the East-West thing that the finals the home team would be whichever team won that All-Star game. So incentives the whole way through. There's an incentive for you as the player to represent your team and bring them something that could mean some extra value in the playoffs, or there's also just winning it for your side so that you potentially have home in the finals. And so the few points of incentive that I like going on here are, one, these guys will straight up be ranked against everyone else that they're playing next to. So you're drawing on their hubris. They're going to literally walk away with, like, however you want to do it, whether it's like advanced stats or like, fantasy basketball kind of thing, or whether you want to go deep down into like what Hinkie did where it was like effort grading, like you got graded on like how many like loose balls you went for and things like that.
Like gymnastics like judging after each period or something like that? I mean, how do we?
I imagine like after the game was over, because it's being tallied while it goes. But yeah, that could be interesting. Like maybe it's once the guys' 20 minutes are up, they hold up a big flaming number. It's got to be flaming.
Yeah, it's got to be flaming.
And it shows what they got. So you literally like see it there. Yeah, that's
it sounds like the main thing. We're all in agreement that we need more fire. Involved in the All-Star game. I think
it's science, Nick.
Right.
It's easy.
Yeah.
So hubris pulls into it because you're gonna have a number next to your name, and you're next to these players that you're seeing next to you that you're supposed to be better than. Number two, all-stars that perform better during the all-star game will be in higher demand in like free agency and trade than others. It brings a whole new factor to trading. Is you don't just need to have a good roster, but you need to have a good all-star who's going to deliver you a high score in the all-star game. And then shame and blame. Like as a higher ranked team, say you're in first place and you go in the playoffs, but your all-star came away with a low score, and then halfway through playoffs you get reseeded or something like that, or you don't get home. Then all of a sudden you've got the fans calling you out. You've got other teammates in the locker room, whispering or things like that. And then the last thing, just like they already have all-star baked into certain contracts where there's a financial incentive just to make the game. So why not like raise it up a level and have it be, if you're a top 10 performing all-star in the all-star game, you get even, another bonus or something like that.
I think that idea was very well thought. And what did I say just before the break? I said, we're going to do some quick hitters. This was not a quick hitter. So let me
actually
teach you,
the opposite.
Let me teach you what the quick hitter is. So I'm going to share a couple of really quick, crazy ideas. First one, Saturday night main event. 3-point competition, but the threes are not counted. Instead, Dwayne Wade grades the shooters.
Ooh.
Okay. Next one.
I have a quick one.
Okay.
How about no 3-point line?
Oh.
Or we do like a special one-off, like for like an anniversary or something, where we go back to like old school rules or something. So no 3-point line, and every player has to shoot free throws underhanded, Bob Cousy style.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice. Okay, I have another one. Friday night main event.
Barry. It was Barry. Wasn't it? It wasn't Bob Cousy. Sorry.
Bob Cousy.
Was it? It was.
I mean, I think Will Chamberlain also shot from
underhanded.
Yeah.
Did he?
Free
Okay.
throws, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see a lot of fans mentioning how much better Will Chamberlain was than Nikola Jokić, and I asked those fans, how many games of Will Chamberlain have we watched? Like what the F are we talking about? Like, there's like literally like 25 minutes total.
Have you even heard of George Mikan? He was so much better.
So much better. Yeah. Okay, next one. So Friday night main event. Play Terminator Judgment Day at the arena because nobody wants to watch rookies versus the Billions. Just play
T2.
Judgment Day. Okay, next one. Saturday night or Saturday matinee event. 4 teams made out of 1 rapper, 1 reality show star, and 1 former NBA girlfriend compete in mini golf. Only the winning team's members' names are shown on TV broadcast. So they need to win because they want their names to be shown.
Okay, I'm totally down for this. If Kanye always has to be one of them and he's mic'd up at all times.
Yeah, you're going to get some nice, juicy one-liners. Okay, another one. And this will be the last one from me. So Sunday night main event. Instead of the All-Star game, we get a 90-minute show where Stephen A. Smith and Mad Dog pick backup 5s for the Lakers because, Alex Len is obviously a starter there. I'm out. I'm out.
Mic drop. That's assuming Stephen A. Smith isn't the next president of the United States.
That is true. Who else was in there? There was some other juicy name mentioned. the next. I don't know. Let's not get into that too much, guys. Any parting thoughts before we go?
I regret everything.
Where do I get some of this conspiracy money? Seems like everybody's getting paid to be in on something except for me.
Yeah, well, just hop on the Texas gambling conspiracy. There's a lot of juice right there.
Okay.
And I recommend to everybody.
You said juice there, right?
Yeah, I did.
Juice.
Just
want to clarify.
Yeah. Juice.
Just want to make sure I heard that right. Okay.
Yeah. Brought a whole new layer to the conspiracy. the Rothschild NBA conspiracy.
So this is a plug for a podcast that have not paid me to do this, but go and listen to a basketball Illuminati show from like a week ago, right after the Luka trade. They had some bangers over there, and these guys are not shy. They're actually making a parody out of conspiracy theories, but these guys are giving everything there is there.
There's a lot of juice there.
To show. There's a lot.
Yeah, ton of juice.
Juice. Okay, that is everything I've prepared for you today, my dear listener. And please, with cherry on top, take the word prepared supremely loosely, because come on, have you seen this? Like, does this sound like a well prepared show? Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody. Call your mom, and until next week, Paul Millsap.
I'll call your mom.